I held the flashlight steady, angling it under the sink, where Elliot muttered about old washers and cheap parts. Water dripped steadily onto the towel I'd folded beneath his elbows, soaking through. He cursed, reached over me for the roll of paper towels, and left his phone on the edge of the counter, still lit from a buzz. I didn't mean to look, but the name Lacey caught my eye. I blinked once, then read the message. "What time does your wife leave? I miss being with you." The air shifted, not louder, just tighter. Elliot didn't notice. He was too busy yanking on a pipe. I picked up the phone, typed with both thumbs, slow and certain. "You can come." She just left. Then I turned off the screen and placed it exactly where he left it. My hands didn't shake. Not even when I filled the kettle and set it on the stove like it was any other Wednesday. The sink kept dripping. Elliot kept swearing. And I pulled 2 mugs from the cupboard, ceramic ones with the blue line around the rim, the ones we never used when guests came by. The coffee was already brewed from earlier that morning. I poured 2 cups, added a splash of milk to mine, nothing to his, set them both on the table. Then I sat and waited. I heard the faucet hiss and then quiet. Elliot stood up behind me, rinsing his hands in the shallow water that had pooled in the basin. I didn't turn around. The clock above the fridge ticked. The room felt like it was holding its breath. Then the doorbell rang. Elliot paused, one hand on the towel. "Are we expecting someone?" "No," I said. He walked past me to the hallway. I rose from my chair. The coffee on the table barely rippled. When he opened the door, I was close enough to see her smile drop. "Hi, Lacey," said, eyes darting behind me. "Is she gone?" I stepped forward. "No," I said. "I'm right here." She stepped inside like she owned the invitation. Her boots clicked softly against the tile, and her eyes flicked past me, searching for him. The perfume hit, first sharp and overconfident. Lipstick just applied. A coat too thin for the weather, but perfect for showing skin. Lacey hesitated when she finally looked at me. I didn't move. I sat at the table, both hands around my coffee mug, still warm, still full. "Is Elliot here?" She asked, voice too sweet, just slightly breathless. "Not yet," I said. "But we can talk while we wait." Her smile twitched at the corner, then faded. I gestured to the chair across from mine. She sat slowly, knees pressed together, hands folded in her lap, like a child waiting for a lecture. I didn't raise my voice. I didn't even look at her too long. Just enough to see her discomfort grow in the quiet. She glanced at the mugs. Is one of those for Elliot?" "No," I said. "Both are mine." A long silence followed. She cleared her throat, trying to fill the space. I didn't know I raised one hand, not to stop her, just to pause the lie before it took shape. "Let's not pretend you came over here not knowing who I am," I said. "You called me she in the text. You said you missed being with him." Her face turned pale. She looked at the door behind me, maybe considering running, but she didn't move. I took a small sip of coffee. She watched my hands like they might throw something. "I didn't mean to cause trouble," she whispered. "You didn't cause it," I said, setting the mug down gently. "You just helped expose it." She flinched like I'd struck her, but I still hadn't raised my voice. I didn't need to. I heard footsteps in the hallway, the unmistakable shuffle of his boots. "Looks like he's here," I said softly. She turned toward the door. I stayed seated, hands folded, waiting for what he'd say when he saw us both. Elliot came in, whistling toolbox swinging lightly at his side, the sound off-key and careless. He stopped short when he saw Lacey at the table with me. For a fraction of a second, he looked like a man who had opened the wrong door. "Hey," he said too loudly. "What's going on?" Lacey didn't answer. She stared at her hands. His phone buzzed again. The sound cut through the room sharp and impatient. He reached for it, fumbled, and it slipped from his fingers. Instinct took over. I caught it before it hit the floor. The screen was still lit, still open. I didn't look at him. I looked at the phone. There was no need to dig. The messages were already there, stacked one after another, like receipts left out in the open. Missed last night. Same room next week, can't wait until she's gone again. Different names, different numbers, different tones, all familiar in their intimacy. Lacey wasn't special. She was convenient. I scrolled once more, just enough to understand the shape of it. Then I locked the screen and set the phone on the table between us. Elliot's face drained of color. His mouth opened, closed, opened again. "Taryn, I can explain," he said. I finally looked at him. He seemed smaller somehow, like the room had grown while he hadn't noticed. "How many women, Elliot?" I asked. My voice surprised even me. Calm, level, almost curious. He glanced at Lacey, then back at me, as if hoping one of us would answer for him. When neither did, he dropped his gaze to the floor. "It's not what you think," he muttered. I let that sit for a moment. The sink behind him was still damp. The towel lay crumpled where he'd left it. Everything ordinary looked suddenly out of place. "Then help me think differently," I said. He said nothing. The silence stretched heavy and unmistakable, and in it I realized this wasn't a mistake he'd fallen into, but a life he'd been maintaining carefully and deliberately, right under the roof we shared. Elliot left like a storm, fast, loud, without looking back. The screen door slammed hard enough to rattle the glass. Lacey lingered. She stood halfway between the kitchen and the door, her mouth moving without sound. I didn't give her words to hold on to. Just a long stare and the silence that made her shift in place. Eventually, she mumbled something like, "I'm sorry," but didn't wait for a reply. The door closed more softly behind her than it had for him. I rinsed my mug, placed it gently in the sink, and walked down the hall. The carpet muffled my steps. I wasn't rushing. I wasn't angry. I was moving with the kind of stillness that comes after a long wait is finally over. I opened the bedroom door and walked to my side of the dresser. The top drawer stuck slightly, as it always did. I pulled it open and reached beneath the folded scarves and old greeting cards. There it was. A plain manila envelope marked in my handwriting, POA, post-surgery. I opened it slowly, as if opening someone else's story. But it was mine. His signature across the bottom of the notarized form giving me power of attorney. We'd signed it the day before his gallbladder surgery 3 years ago, just in case he'd said, "You'll be in charge if I'm out." I placed the envelope beside my laptop, logged in. The banking app took a moment to load, then the numbers appeared. Familiar ones, our joint account, his personal card, my bakery fund, and then another one. A savings account I didn't recognize, not ours, not mine. I grabbed a notebook and started writing. Routing numbers, balances, names of banks. I wasn't sure what I'd need, but I wasn't going to wait to find out. I moved quietly through tabs, checking statements, marking dates. A few transfers stood out, late nights, weekends amounts, just under what might raise flags. By the time the sun slipped down behind the neighbor's fence, I'd filled 4 pages. Then I picked up the phone and called someone I hadn't spoken to in months, my lawyer. The next morning, I woke earlier than usual. The kitchen was still cool from the night and smelled faintly of flour. I didn't cry. I didn't even pause. I pulled out the mixer and began working on dough like it was any other Thursday. 3 batches. 1 sourdough, 1 rye, 1 sweet molasses. I called the lawyer between the first and second ryes. She remembered me, asked how Elliot's recovery had gone years ago, then fell silent when I told her why I was calling now. "I'd like to initiate a freeze," I said. "On everything with both our names." She didn't ask questions I wasn't ready to answer, just got to work. By 3 p.m., I had an email confirming the asset freeze was in motion. His accounts wouldn't vanish in the night. Not this time. At 4, I pulled a stack of old paperwork from the file cabinet in the hall closet. Most of it was junk manuals, warranties, faded receipts. But tucked inside a worn green folder was what I needed. Property transfer. Signed. Notarized. Predated when he added me to the deed, then tried to reverse it a year later after a business dispute. He must have forgotten it was never finalized. Or maybe he thought I'd thrown it away. I hadn't. I printed a fresh copy and placed it in a new folder marked Review. No shouting, no dramatic scene. This wasn't rage, it was motion. I answered emails from bakery customers, arranged a new delivery schedule, even confirmed a vendor order for autumn spices. Elliot didn't call, didn't text, but I knew he'd check the balance soon, and he'd know something had changed. I made tea, sat at the dining room table, and read through the rest of the financials. A deposit caught my eye, $5,000, listed under a coded name I didn't recognize. I circled it, then turned the page. This wasn't a storm. It was a map, and I'd finally stopped walking blind. I didn't knock. I just folded the note and slid it beneath Lacey's door. It was short-typed, signed with my name in ink. You weren't the only one. You were just the closest. Then I turned around and walked home. It took 2 days for the phone to ring. The first call came from a woman named Gwen. She said she worked at the flower shop downtown, the one where Elliot used to pick up anniversary bouquets he never gave me. I saw your number on the bank statement, she said. I didn't mean to dig. He told me you'd passed, that you'd been sick for years. I didn't know. Her voice broke. I didn't comfort her. I just listened. Later that evening, I got an email from a woman in New Mexico. Attached was a photo of her and Elliot at a lake resort. He was wearing the shirt I'd bought him last Christmas. She wrote, he said he was widowed. Said I made him feel alive again. Another message followed the next morning. This one from a woman who used to work at his old real estate firm. She'd been younger than the others, barely out of college when they met. He helped me pay off my student loans, she said. Said it was from a life insurance policy. From you. I thanked her calmly and asked for a copy of the transaction. She sent it. Along with a voicemail Elliot had left her the month before. I didn't cry when I heard his voice. I didn't even flinch. I started a binder, labeled it Timeline. Each woman got a section: dates, screenshots, bank activity, photos. Then I walked it down to the notary's office. The woman behind the counter asked if I was building a case. No, I said. I'm just making a record. When I got home, I placed the binder in the center of the dining table. Then I turned on the light above it, so when he came back, it would be the first thing he saw. I walked the house slowly that morning, barefoot, on the cool tile, taking in everything he hadn't bothered to take. The lamp in the living room still leaned where it had fallen weeks ago. He'd promised to fix it, just like he promised to patch the roof and tighten the faucet and clean out the garage. Promises were easy for Elliot, easier than honesty. The wedding photo on the mantel hadn't gathered dust because I wiped it every few days out of habit. Not love, just routine. His smile in the frame felt theatrical now, like he'd posed for someone else's life. In the bathroom, the sink still leaked. He hadn't come back for his tools, or for me. What he had done was send an email. Let's talk. You overreacted. We can work this out. No subject line. No apology. No mention of the women or the lies or the note under Lacey's door. Just a thin request for return to comfort, to denial to the version of me that would rather keep peace than seek truth. I attached the scanned court notice to my reply. No greeting, no sign-off. Just, here is the date. Here is the time. You'll need a lawyer. Then I sent him a second email, this one, an itemized invoice. Water, electricity, internet. His half of the month he didn't finish. I didn't expect him to pay. I just wanted the record clean. In the garage, I stacked his tools by the wall. Didn't touch anything. Just moved them into one place in case he came back with a reason. The house was quieter now. Not empty. Not lonely. Just clearer. I lit a candle in the kitchen, not for scent, but for stillness. Then I opened the window and let the morning in. Outside, the trash bin was full. I tied the bag, pulled it out, and noticed something tucked beside it, a shoebox. One of his. I opened the lid. Inside, a stack of receipts and a photo I'd never seen before. Elliot, smiling, holding hands with someone else. I opened the bakery an hour earlier than usual. The street was still waking up. Light traffic birds loud in the silence people hadn't yet filled. The first customer through the door was Mrs. Elkins, same as always. She looked me over for a moment before speaking. "You look rested," she said. "I slept through the night," I answered. It was true. No tossing. No waiting for keys in the door. No wondering what silence meant. As the morning went on, the regulars came in one by one. No one said much, but I could feel it, the shift. I didn't chatter. I didn't smile too wide, but something in me had stopped gripping the edge of things. I wasn't holding anything anymore. By mid-morning, we were nearly sold out. I wiped the counter clean, then restocked the paper bags. The sun had risen higher, making the tile floor warm under my shoes. At 11:17, the delivery truck pulled up. A young man stepped inside with a clipboard and a box. "Package for Elliot Malice," he said, squinting at the slip. I looked at the name. Plain printed. His handwriting never touched it. "I don't know anyone by that name," I said. He blinked. "This is the address, ma'am." I shook my head. "No one by that name lives here." He hesitated, then nodded, and walked back out, box in hand. I returned to the back office, opened my laptop, and typed a short email to the shipping company. Return to sender. No one here by that name anymore. Then I sat back, closed the screen, let the quiet settle in. There was no victory in it, no triumph, just the soft arrival of something I hadn't felt in years. Room. By the time I closed the shop that evening, I'd forgotten to think about him. I locked the door, flipped the sign to closed, and walked home past the house with the peeling shutters. As I turned the corner, I saw a figure waiting at my front porch. Elliot, holding a white bakery box. He showed up exactly 3 weeks after the last email. Same coat collar turned up like it could shield him from consequence. His hands clutched a white pastry box, not mine. From the shop 2 blocks over, the one that never sold out. "I thought maybe we could talk," he said. His voice still held that nervous charm, the kind that once made me believe he was just misunderstood. I looked at the box. The logo was printed crooked on the side. One of their croissants was always underbaked. He held it out like peace, or pity. I wasn't sure which. I didn't take it. Instead, I walked behind the counter and picked up a roll from the discard tray, dense day-old rye with a cracked top. I held it up between us. "You left," I said, calm. So I refreshed the menu. He glanced down, shifting from foot to foot. "Taryn, I know I made mistakes." I placed the roll back in the tray and said nothing. The silence between us didn't stretch. It snapped. He tried again. "You look different." I did. "Because I wasn't waiting anymore. Do you want something?" I asked. "I thought maybe we could—" His sentence faded unanchored. "Start over." I turned to the register. Counted the drawer same as always. Logged the totals. Not out of rudeness, just routine. When I looked back, he hadn't moved. Still holding the box like it might carry all the things he never said when it mattered. "I'm closing now," I said, reaching for the light switch. "Taryn," he said soft. "Please." I didn't raise my voice. I didn't cry. I just walked to the door, opened it, and waited. He stepped out slowly, the box still in his hands. I didn't touch it. Then I turned off the lights behind him. As the glow from the sign dimmed, I saw the envelope he'd left on the windowsill. No return address, just my name. And inside, something that didn't belong to him anymore, the title to the house. I walked the hallway barefoot, feeling the smoothness of the floor under my feet, noticing how the house sounded different now. Quieter, but not hollow. Just settled. The pipe under the sink no longer dripped. A plumber I hired 2 days ago had fixed it in less than an hour. He didn't ask why I'd waited so long. He just did the work, wiped his hands, and left a receipt on the counter. I filed it away with the others, neat and final. The guest room stayed empty. The bed was made untouched. I opened the window to let fresh air in, then closed it again when the room felt complete as it was. Some spaces didn't need filling. In the kitchen, I set the kettle on the stove and waited. No one interrupted me. No one asked where I'd put the extra mugs or why the mail hadn't been sorted yet. When the water was ready, I poured it over the leaves and watched the steam rise slowly, then fade. I carried the cup to the front window and sat down. The street outside looked ordinary: cars passing, a dog tugging at its leash, a woman unlocking her door across the way. Life continuing unremarkable and steady. For years, I'd believed trust was something you guarded, something fragile that could only survive if you stayed still around it. Now I understood it differently. Trust wasn't something to protect at all costs. It was something to offer carefully and withdraw when it was mishandled. I didn't think about Elliot that morning. Not out of effort, but because he no longer occupied the space where my thoughts used to circle. The house held what it needed, now light order, and my own footsteps moving through it without hesitation. I took a sip of tea and let the warmth settle. There was nothing left to fix, nothing left to wait for. And as the day unfolded quietly beyond the glass, I stood ready to step forward into whatever came next.